Fights in gaming come in all shapes and sizes, big, small, easy, challenging, etc. Though in my opinion, some of the best and most rewarding battles in gaming are the ones against a foe whose fighting prowess is on even terms with you. In other words, a battle of equals. Now, a battle of equals doesn't always mean exact same moves. So for this list, I will be judging the following battles on story, how close the two combatants are in abilities within a fight, and how good the fight itself is. And if any boss fight offers any aids or exploits for the match, well, it might cost them a higher spot. Oh, and considering that this is a list about bosses, there will be spoilers for various games. Standard rules apply, only one per franchise, only from games I've played, and I've had to have faced the boss. So with that said, let the chaos commence! I found the story in Pokemon Black and White to be pretty interesting and very thought-provoking, what with the story's subject matter of liberating Pokemon from humans and the whole truth's ideals conflict as shown through the legendary battle of the two heroes of Unova and the two legendary dragons. In the final battle against In, history repeats itself as these two legendary Pokemon clash again to settle this age-old conflict as well as the Unova region's fate. The fight begins with both trainers sending out their respective dragons. These legendary Pokemon are pretty evenly matched, sharing similar stats and moves. And sure, In's dragon is 2 levels higher than yours, but that really shouldn't matter. While I do find that this is the only matchup in the battle that screams equal fight, the overall battle in terms of the story can be considered an equal fight as the two trainers are essentially playing the roles of the two heroes fighting for what they believe in. Though what keeps it from getting any higher on the list is having your respective dragon on your team is optional, assuming you already had a full team beforehand. And once In's dragon goes down, the rest of the fight becomes just a regular boss fight. Not to say that it's a bad boss. It's a great fight, offering a story-intense fight between two heroes and their legendary Pokemon that answer one question: truth or ideals? I can't decide. Next entry. As great of a challenge it is to battle someone that's on par with you, what happens if the opponent you're facing is yourself? One of the few great things to come out of what is widely considered one of the worst dungeons in all of Zelda, the Dark Link fight brought a nice change of pace to the boss fights in the game because, well, you're fighting yourself. Sure, it's not as atmospheric or story-driven like the other fights you'll see on the list, but for a battle of equals, this pretty much nails it. Mostly. You encounter Dark Link in a foggy room with nothing in it but a lone tree in the middle and a shallow pool of water that shows your reflection, a contrast to the rest of the dungeon. During the fight, Dark Link copies every single move you make and every sword attack you try to throw at him. He'll even get smart and dodge most of your attacks and retaliate, even going so far as to stand on your sword. How come I can't do that? And every time you land a hit, he reappears more aggressive than the last, meaning you'll have to be on your toes if you want to win. Though the reason why it's so low on the list is because he only copies your sword attacks, movements, and dodge techniques. He doesn't copy the items you have, meaning you can use these to your advantage, with the Bigoron Sword, Megaton Hammer, and Din's Fire being huge exploits for this fight. However, like I said, he can dodge most of these attacks, so be careful. Despite all of this is still a pretty interesting fight and a very memorable one for the Zelda franchise. Oh look, a light versus dark battle. How unique. Well, even so, this fight is actually a fairly challenging match. Having not been satisfied by their incomplete fusion, Dark Sora here clashes with Imitation Roxas one last time in hopes of completing their fusion and turning this back into this. In this battle, Vanitas fights somewhat differently than in previous matches. Some of his attacks appear similar to the other attacks that the heroes can use in the game, like this attack resembling Time Splicer, or this move that looks like Sonic Blade or Riku's attacks in other games. He even has Thunder Magic. It's like he has a command deck of his own to use against you, making this a balanced fight. And to think, this is only the first phase. In the second phase, Vanitas destroys the very battlefield beneath you in epic fashion, followed by Ventus entering a Force D-Link with Vanitas, granting him the power of flight. At this point, you just spam the commands you have or use your shot lock to fire a laser. Keep in mind that Vanitas can do the same, which can result in a clash where you have to input a command to win the struggle. The fight ends when you fill up the gauge and turn Vanitas into a dining table decoration. Vanitas puts up a good fight, but in the end, both kinda get screwed. Vanitas and the Keyblade disappear, and Ventus's heart leaves him and finds Sora. thus causing Ventus to fall asleep. For 11 years. But hey, at least there's no more unversed. That's something, right? Right? A fated encounter. These two will engage in a battle of pure steel. They're not trying to gain money, or power, or fame. No. They fight because it's the only thing they know for real. In their first encounter at the start of the game, Sam absolutely destroyed Raiden. But at this point in Metal Gear Rising, Raiden has gotten much stronger and more experienced, thus arriving at Sam's level. Of course, this fight isn't going to be easy. I mean, Sam wields a sword that's statistically better than Raiden's primary weapon, the high-frequency blade, but this fight shows that it's not the weapon itself that wins the battle. It's how you use it. And let's just say that Sam knows how to use his sword, unleashing barrage after barrage of powerful sword attacks. So you'll have to prove to him that you've become a better swordsman since the last encounter, or else be prepared to have your molecular bonds sliced up. And even if you knock Sam's sword out of his hands, he still packs quite a punch. Literally. Now yes, you can use the various weapons you've obtained from the other cyborg bosses you beat to aid you, as well as this stuff, though using the grenade launchers and bombs in this fight is a bad idea because it leaves you open. Yet, at the end of the day, it's a battle of two cyborg swordsmen of equal strength and skill, letting history decide who is better and whose cause will prevail. And when you beat Sam, you learn that he had very little cyborg enhancements in the fight, as if he wanted this fight to be fair and even, noble and honorable to the end, and he passes on with dignity. I wish I could say the same for his comrades. Well, what do you know? Another Platinum Games boss. It was tough choosing which fight between Bayonetta and the Masked Lumen would make it on this list. But I ultimately chose the first encounter due to how well it introduces the duality between the Lumen Sage and our Umbra Witch protagonist. The first phase of the fight is fairly simple, but it shows that the Masked Lumen attacks similarly to Bayonetta. He's even able to dodge attacks just like her. But then the fight goes from simple and tame to sheer destruction in the second phase as the Masked Lumen summons Fortitudo and Bayonetta summons Labalos. They both clash yet again as their giant servants battle in the background. This phase is much like the first, except the Lumen Sage gets an attack that, once charged up, causes an eruption that can deal huge damage. In the third phase, Bayonetta summons Madama Butterfly, and the Masked Lumen summons Temperantia to fight as the two take to the sky for an aerial battle. This phase is similar to the previous two, except the Masked Lumen is more prone to dodging in this phase. And it all leads up to
the greatest boxing match in all of Purgatorio! These two colossal giants are at it in this spectacular event! Temperantia goes on the offense, but Madama Butterfly ducks and retaliates! Folks, this match is getting intense!
Oh yeah, intense is a great word to describe this fight. Not only does it set the stage for future battles against the Masked Lumen, but it also manages to show that the Umbra Witch and Lumen Sage, despite being on different sides, are equals in skill and abilities. I mean, the fight pretty much ends in a stalemate. Now that's over the top. Yeah, there was no overlooking this rivalry for this list. The question is, which fight makes it on here? Well, after some consideration, I decided to go with the final encounter because I believe this fight shows their equality to each other. See, Shovel Knight and Black Knight confront each other in battle twice in the story, and both fights show how Black Knight is just as good with the shovel blade as Shovel Knight. But after being struck by a mini bullet hell attack, Black Knight is given increased power to his techniques from the previous fights, while also gaining new abilities like the ability to fly and summon meteors. You're probably asking yourselves, how is this an even fight? Well, Black Knight's shovel attacks, despite being stronger, are relatively the same, so he's still on par with Shovel Knight in that aspect. And while he does have new abilities that Shovel Knight doesn't have, Shovel Knight has the relics at his disposal, giving both knights something that outclasses the other, thus evening the fight. It becomes a battle of skill with their shovel blades, plus Black Knight's brute strength versus Shovel Knight's versatility, and only one of these knights will come out on top. I still consider this the best fight in the normal story of Shovel Knight. It's a true test of your skills and abilities as two wielders of the shovel blade clash for one final time in the game, and I wouldn't have this fight any other way. This next entry is about one of Kirby's longtime rivals, Meta Knight. In most fights against him, Meta Knight himself will lend Kirby a sword to use in their battles to even the playing field. However, this doesn't happen all the time, and I wouldn't say Kirby is his most evenly matched opponent. So how do you even up the odds for someone like Meta Knight? By introducing a warrior so powerful that he had to be turned into a chandelier in space. This fight is basically the Meta Knight boss from Revenge of Meta Knight made much tougher. Anything Meta Knight can do, Galactonite can do, and then some. Sword beams, rapid slashes, tornado attacks, heck, he even summons helpers of his own to aid him in the fight, and he even has some unique attacks of his very own, like these fire pillars and this air attack thing. And if that wasn't enough for you, both knights have an extremely crazy powerful mock tornado attack in this fight. What more needs to be said? It's Meta Knight going up against a warrior so powerful yet equal in terms of skills and abilities. This is what you wished for, Meta Knight. Now prove to us which knight is the greatest warrior in the galaxy. Sonic Adventure 2 gave us one of the greatest rivalries in gaming in the form of Sonic vs. Shadow. The final battle between these two at the ends of their respective stories was an epic one, as there was much on the line and it settled who was the better hedgehog. And you know what? It's not on the list because I've not played these boss fights, and even if I did, running in a single direction doesn't seem all too interesting. Now, the fight in Generations, this Sonic vs. Shadow fight expands on what the original offered. The stage is designed to resemble Final Rush and Final Chase in the style of a race course, which works in this fight, as speed is Sonic and Shadow's strong suit. The goal of this fight is to collect these orbs before the other, and by collecting enough, you'll perform a special attack similar to what happens in the original fight. These orbs are constantly moving, so Sonic and Shadow have to race each other to get to them. And considering that these two have pretty much the same moves, it's pretty evenly matched. If Shadow uses his special move, it becomes a game of dodging his Chaos Spear attacks, followed by dodging a blast of Chaos Control. If Sonic uses his special move, he slams into meteors that home in on Shadow, slowing him down. He then rams into Shadow, depleting his ring count and ultimately defeating him. Though what I like is that both special moves can fail, so keep that in mind. Overall, I think this fight did the Sonic-Shadow rivalry justice. Certainly a lot better than...
You're weak. And you know what makes you weak? Your loyalty to your pathetic friends.
What did Sonic Boom do to you? Samus vs. Rundas. I know that many people talk to death about this boss and how great of an equal fight it is, but really, how can you blame them? This is such a great fight. Rundas was a fellow bounty hunter and an admirable comrade to Samus's, going so far as to help her twice when aiding the Federation. But after a month passes and Samus is sent to investigate what the heck is going on with the 3 bounty hunters going after Leviathan seeds, Samus encounters Rundas on Brio. Except he's now under Dark Samus's control and decides to pick a fight. And let me just say that, even though I'm not a big Metroid fan, this is one of the most satisfying and hype-filled boss battles I've ever faced. Rundas' moves are very similar to Samus's. In fact, let's list the similarities. Samus has her arm cannon and charge shots. Rundas has his ice shots that freeze you solid. Samus has her missiles. Rundas has these ice shards. Samus has the morph ball. Rundas has his ice rails to surf around on. Samus has her hyper mode, and Rundas has his... hyper mode. Oh, and both are wearing PED suits, which help control the phazon inside them. So how is all of this handled for the fight? Well, Rundas has his own strategy for the fight, mostly keeping himself on a higher elevation, while Samus is forced to be more ground-based and adjust to Rundas' attacks and the ever-changing terrain. With all of these pieces in place, the dynamics of the two in combat feel complementary and can be fairly challenging when handled, well, fair. But no matter how hard we try, no matter how much we don't want it to be, no matter how many times we fight Rundas, we have to kill him. Or does he kill himself? Or was it Dark Samus? Look, the point is, Rundas dies, and Dark Samus is an evil I mean, who forces a bounty hunter to kill her comrades? So sad.
Looks like I'm the last man standing.
Oh look, the number 1 segment has Dark Pit in it. It's like I'm a fanboy or something. But in all seriousness, can you really blame me for putting this at number 1? In my eyes, I feel the Pit vs. Dark Pit fight has everything that a battle of equals should have. Compared to the previous entries, everything demonstrated in this fight shows that Pit and Dark Pit are not just similar, they're the exact same in every aspect. After his creation from the Mirror of Truth in the previous chapter, this boss fight begins right as Chapter 6 opens, as Pit and Dark Pit initiate the power of flight and clash in the air for the air battle section of the chapter. Dark Pit shows that he's just as good at using the power of flight as Pit, even getting creative at times with attacks. Once Pit has landed for land battle, he must scavenge Dark Pit out and fight him. Dark Pit uses different weapons each time he's snuffed out, showing that he can use any weapon that Pit can use in the game, thus any move that Pit can do. He pretty much does this for the whole chapter. It's kinda like multiplayer in a way. Yes, you do use the Cherubot, but it's only in one of the possible fights in a run of this chapter, and that's assuming you choose to use it. In the final encounter in Chapter 6, Dark Pit uses the Silver Bow and attacks Pit like in the previous land battles, but also uses the power of flight again against Pit. While this does give him an edge in the fight, it does show that he can use the special attacks that Pit can use when using the power of flight. Like I said, for a battle of equals, this fight has everything. It's two combatants that are literally the same guy, each one essentially having the same abilities as the other. I just don't know how you can top this fair fight. This is not only my favorite boss and chapter in Kid Icarus Uprising, but it is my #1 battle of equals in video games. I'm Chaos Key 4013, and I still have to wonder how Veridi convinced Dark Pit to join the forces of nature. It probably went something like,
"Hey, so I hear you still have a grudge against Pit. Perhaps you and I can join forces against him and Palutena. I mean, with our combined might, I bet we can take them out for sure. So, what do you say? I'll make you an officer."
Works for me. What's up, guys? Sorry that this took a while to make. It took some time getting the script revised, and for those that didn't know, I was sick, so that hindered progress too. Thank you so much for your patience. As you can tell, I have a new Endcard created by my friend Michelate. I plan to use this for my countdowns and bigger projects while I use the other Endcard for LP and smaller videos. I'll be putting the credits here from now on and feature 2 of my videos on the left and a mystery video. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.